back to Ed Flash Ferentz with America's Workforce.
And don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Twitter handle, real simple, AWF Union Podcast, AWF Union Podcast. By the way, this next segment brought to you in part by the fine folks at the United Labor Agency, celebrating 50 years, started in Cleveland, Ohio, 1971. You can find more at ulagency.org. Before we get to Pete Ielmini, I just want to reference another organizing drive. I mentioned the workers at Collectivo Coffee in Illinois and Wisconsin joining the IBEW. Well, guess what? The workers at various Starbucks locations in the Buffalo region have announced that they have formed an organizing committee called Starbucks Workers United, and they have appealed to the company's progressive branding, writing that respecting workers' right to organize will help the company achieve their mission of improving communities one coffee at a time. In their letter, the organizing committee asked Starbucks management to agree to 8 fair election principles, which would limit some campaign tactics available to Starbucks, like captive audience meetings, which would be allowed, but only on the condition that the union is given equal time to reply. Well, that is one organizing drive to watch, no doubt about that. All right, let's go to line number 1. Welcome one of our regulars, also a proud sponsor. I'm talking about the Heat and Frost Insulators, LMCT, Mechanical Insulators, LMCT.com. And joining us is Mr. Pete Ielmini. Pete, how are we doing today, brother?
Hey, how you doing?
That Jersey accent always comes out. Hey, somebody in Northeast Ohio says hi. Pat Corrigan, who is the business manager of the Heat and Frost Insulators and Allied Workers Local 3, says, you tell Pete that Pat says hi next time you talk to him. So there you have it.
Thank you very much. And Pat is a great guy and a great labor leader as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of fun. All right. You want to talk today about the fire stop industry. This is something that you and I have addressed over the course of time that we've been talking together, but it's worth repeating. And there's always updates. And let's just get into it. Let's talk about fire stop and smoke seal. What's it all about, Pete?
Yeah, thank you, Flash. Yeah, you and I have spoke a lot about this over the last couple of years. In fact, we even had one of our contractors, Tom Dake from Superior Industrial Insulation. I consider him one of the experts in the field of fire stopping. He was on our show, I believe back in March. But even in addition to that, you and I had several conversations about it. And much like insulation, this is a topic that doesn't get old, and it has to be talked about because not many people know about it. And specifically, I want to be able to talk about the inspection process on how it is verified that your building, your facility, your hospital, your school, your college has proper fire stop systems installed. But before I get into that, let me do a quick review. Fire containment is extremely important. If for whatever reason a fire starts within a room or in a portion of a building, we want to be able to contain that fire. We don't want the fire to spread. More importantly, we don't want the smoke to spread throughout the building. If it's able to be contained, suppression systems such as fire sprinkler systems will kick on, extinguish the fire, or the fire department has the ability to contain that fire in that one room. And not only will it save property, it also will save lives. Nothing's worse than a fire that goes rampant throughout a building. And we control that. And this is not a new technology. I think most people have heard the term of fire-rated walls, and that ties directly into the building codes of various buildings and the building purpose, such as a school or a hospital or an office building or a factory, different building codes are applied when that building is designed and it's built. And it's built with fire-rated walls. And the fire-rated walls mean that the fire and smoke will not penetrate that wall for a certain amount of time. It could be 2 hours, it can be 3 hours, it could be 4 hours. It all depends on the code and the architect and the engineers who designed that building. The problem happens is that the wall is a fire barrier, and it works very well. And you have either joints in the wall where the wall meets the ceiling, where it meets the floor, or it meets other walls. You have a breach, if you will, or a opening that has to be addressed. And those structural walls, the building is designed to be able to move and has seismic shifts. So they have to have the building. Buildings are designed, believe it or not, to be flexible. They flex and they move with various vibrations, and we don't actually feel it, but the building has to be able to do that. But what those joints are, fire and smoke may penetrate through them. So we have to put special systems in there to keep the fire and the smoke from migrating through that fire-rated wall. But more commonly than that are the penetrations that go through that wall. And the penetration is anything that goes through that wall from one room to the other. It could be commonly a pipe. It could be electrical lines. It could be conduit. It can be HVAC, ductwork, or just openings. And when someone puts a hole or penetration through a wall, that becomes a breach, or that becomes the weakest point of the wall. So now when there's a fire, or more importantly, smoke and fire will go through that opening into the next room.
Right.
So you can have this beautiful fire-rated wall that's rated for, let's say, 3 hours, but because someone made a hole in that wall, you just weaken the entire system. You know, it goes back to that old saying, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
Right.
And what we do, part of the mechanical insulation industry, is that we have to fill up that hole with special products, special Firestop products, to be able to seal off that smoke and also prevent intense heat, I should say, and flame going through that penetration, as well as when the fire department does come and they potentially use their high-pressure hoses and it hits that penetration, it has to be strong enough where it doesn't get blown out from the pressure of the fire hose, or even pressure from the fire. And it's one thing people don't realize: when there's a fire in a room, because of the heat, it builds up pressure, and that pressure can blow out plate glass, but it will blow out any Firestop system that's not properly installed. And that's where the rubber really meets the road, is that you have to have qualified and trained personnel and contractors to install the Firestop systems. And I keep using the term systems. It's not just material. You just don't take Firestop material and stick it in the hole and hope it works. There is a testing process that is done with the Firestop manufacturers to make sure that Firestop system works. And it's tested many times in laboratories from UL and also FM laboratories to make sure that it qualifies and it meets its purpose. And it maintains that fire-rated wall for the length of time. Too many times, the Firestop material is purchased, and you can't stop people from buying it, and it's installed improperly. And on the outside, it may look like it is complete, and may look like that it is properly treated for that opening, but many times it's not. And unfortunately, most people don't really find out until it's too late, until there is a investigation after a fire. And the fire inspectors are able to, what an incredible field that is. And there's a lot of smart people that are able to examine the fire, where it started, what were the elements that started the fire, what were the elements that maintained that fire. And they can trace where the fire started, and they can trace where it went from compartment or a room, from one room to the other, or it could be from one floor to another. Now, if there's a fire, say in a high rise on the 13th floor, how did it get to the 14th floor? How did it get to the 15th floor? That should not be. The fire and smoke should not travel. But many times in a fire investigation, after the fire, it's realized and how that fire traveled. And this is why it's been part of the building codes for many years. It's nothing that's new to the construction industry of these fire-rated walls. How we take care of these penetrations, though, has evolved. It used to be 30 years ago and sooner, we used to just put in insulation products into those barriers, into those penetrations, and the pressure just blew out the insulation. Since then, the Firestop industry, I call it the second generation of the Firestop industry, had developed these advanced materials and products to be able to install into these penetrations. But what I really want to talk about today is the importance of making sure that these systems are installed and making sure they're installed properly. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to inspections, to making sure that they are properly done. And unfortunately, the inspections is the Achilles heel of this industry, and that's where it falls a little short. Different type of codes, building codes, depending upon the application, requires some sort of government inspection. Usually the fire department, fire marshals, fire inspectors, they are in charge of inspecting the building, make sure that they're up to the fire codes in all aspects of the building, not just Firestop.
I hear
you. And I'm not criticizing any of the fire marshals and the inspectors. I can only imagine their world where there is so much to look at, so much to inspect, and sometimes the Firestop systems don't get the attention that they rightly deserve. And there's no way for the fire marshals to be able to understand the amount of renovations that go on in the building. You know, where a contractor comes in and simply just puts in telecommunication lines throughout a building, which is very common nowadays. And the contractor's coming in, making penetrations in the wall, and no one thinks twice about it. And the experts in the field, the ones that I deal with, such as Tom Dake, explain that to me all the time on how there are renovations done to a building, and the contractor may not be aware of it. The owner's definitely not aware of it. The fire marshals and the inspectors are not aware of it. And now we have fire-rated walls with weakness, with penetrations put into that wall.
So, Pete, in essence, you think they're fire-rated, but they're not because of the renovations that may have happened. Like you mentioned, the telecom wires being put through the wall, and obviously that disrupts the whole process when it comes to fire stopping. All right, if you can hold that thought, I want to get into the inspection process and also about the seminars, free seminars for fire marshals and other inspectors. Very important issue. If there's a fire in a building, you want it contained immediately, and that's what we're talking about on the show. Later, We're going to check in with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters and talk about organizing. And on the line will be the National Campaign Coordinator for Organizing. Back in a few minutes.
This is America's Workforce. More shows available at awfradio.com. Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And don't forget, we're available on 5 platforms. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as Pandora. Let's go back to our live line and rejoin one of our regulars, Mr. Pete Ielmini, on behalf of the Heat and Frost Insulators, LMCT. That stands for Labor Management Cooperative Trust. We're talking once again about the fire stop industry and the importance of making sure that the inspections are done on a regular basis and making sure the inspectors are knowing what they're looking for, along with the fire marshals. Pete, let's pick up on that because I know there's a couple of things you wanted to add to our last conversation, but I want to get into the free seminars, and there's a lot of educational opportunities out there, so I'm just going to turn it over to you. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. One thing that we have found in our industry is to be able to expand the education level of everyone that's involved in this, from the facility manager, the building owner, all the way to the public officials who do the inspections. And I want to be able to get this out as clear as I possibly can and be able to use this platform to advertise the fact that we are willing to enhance and increase the education level of our fire marshals and any public official. We will gladly like to be able to sit down with the inspectors and the fire departments and to be able to give them the knowledge that we have about the fire stop systems and how they can easily inspect and the things to be able to look for when they do their inspections. And by no means am I criticizing the job that those men and women have to do. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of responsibility. They have a tremendous amount of items that they have to look for and inspect, and they do a good job. But from our industry, what the LMCT likes to be able to do is just to give these officials another tool in their toolbox and to give them a additional training and awareness of the actual installation and the construction of these fire stop systems. We feel that that's going to be beneficial, one, to save lives, and that's probably the thing that's most important. And to be realistic, what's secondary is to be able to save the property, which saves money. And I like to make, and I'm starting to investigate this even further, and I also like to be able to educate our insurance companies. And that's kind of something that's out in left field, but I feel that the insurance companies that insure our buildings also should be aware of this. And I'm sure they would like to know or even to be able to give a discount that they possibly could to a building owner that is up on these fire stop technologies and industry, and the building is going to be a lot safer for life and property. I think the insurance company should be aware of that. And I like to be able to offer seminar training for insurance companies as well. And, you know, I think about, and I'd like to make a comparison to the construction industry as a whole and OSHA. As we all know, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration over the last 30 to 40 years have developed a lot of regulations and requirements to make things safe for the construction worker, and it's been absolutely a game changer in the construction field. But the entity that has really propelled and pushed and enforced the OSHA regulations, believe it or not, are the insurance companies. The insurance companies that insure the construction contractor. They make sure that the contractor is following safety regulations because they don't want to have accidents. They want to keep their rates low. They want to keep the payouts low.
Mm-hmm.
But the insurance companies really drive the industry of worker safety, and they use the OSHA standards in conjunction with that. And it's something that's really not a secret, but it works. And after so many years of listening to frustrations of hearing about the Firestop industry and how it's not inspected enough, I really would like to have an attempt to get the insurance companies involved in this as well. Maybe the insurance companies would look different on insuring a building that has proper fire stop system as the ones that do not.
Right.
After the fire, it becomes the business of rebuilding that structure, and the insurance companies are right there, right in the middle of it. And I would just think they would have an interest in to learn more about this fire stop industry. So if there are any insurance companies that are in the business of insuring buildings in fire protection, I would love to be able to have a conversation with an individual or an organization and to give them the education about fire stop as well. But going back to what I just said a couple minutes ago, if there's any public officials or organizations, fire marshals, whether it be on the municipal level, the city level, or state level, and we have done it before. We have had several states where we were able to speak at their conference or their gatherings, and just to give them a little bit of education about a world that we are very familiar with, and it was always successful. And I like to be able to put that out there for anyone interested in more information. You can contact me, go to the website, and you have a plethora of information.
There's actually two websites. You got the Mechanical Insulators, LMCT.com, or those of you listening right now can go to Firestop, LMCT.com. So either one of those, Mechanical Insulators, LMCT.com, or Firestop, LMCT.com. I would imagine insurance companies always want to save money. They'll take your money, but they don't want to pay it out. And this is a great opportunity for them. Great opportunity. One more question here, Pete. Are you finding more jurisdictions, municipalities that are getting what you're talking about on fire stopping, realizing that it's important to do this on the upfront? Is that happening right now?
It's happening. It's evolving, but it is moving like molasses. It is very slow. And unfortunately, it's going to evolve based on the amount of unfortunate fires that happen. People get educated very quickly, unfortunately, after the event. And you can, if you have the opportunity to read reports of a post-fire investigation, it's very telling of what it is. I had the opportunity to read, believe it or not, it was a long time ago, the 9/11 Commission reports, and it was a high rise in the fire in the World Trade Center, obviously, but when you saw the reports of the firemen going into that building, they had to go to several different floors because the fire was migrating from one floor to the next. And they were attempting to control that fire. Ended up being a lot bigger story than just that. But it was very telling to me when I was reading that in the 9/11 Commission report. But any fire, any high-rise building, even a one-story school, fire is going to migrate from one containment to the other. And when people realize how you can prevent this, then the awareness of fire stop industry increases. So the inspection process with municipalities is growing. It's just not growing fast enough. And we have to make sure we get quality contractors and quality trained personnel to install these systems.
I hear you. All right, Pete, we're going to button it up there. Once again, there's two websites to go to if you want to contact Pete, especially Anybody involved in insurance listening right now, it's so darn important. Let's go to Mechanical Insulators, LMCT.com, or simply Firestop, LMCT.com. Pete, let's stay on this issue. I'm glad you revisited it, and it's so important. We're talking about saving lives. It's real simple. We're saving lives in America, along with saving a whole lot of money down the road as well. So you take care, stay safe, and we'll talk next month, all right?
Thank you, Flash. You take care as well.